Welcome to Celebrating Everyday People, where we recognize those amazing people doing amazing work out there. My co host is Malcolm Berman, and my name is Yana Larson. You can find us on malcolmpresents.com and on Malcolm's YouTube. We also have a Facebook page, and we're on Buzzsprout in all major directories and beyond as we enhance our online presence. Today, our guest is Jennie Spanos. She is co director of Move to Amend and a lifelong advocate for real democracy and community power. She also serves as chair of the Ecology Network and is active in both the Labor Caucus and the Law and Research Committee, helping connect environmental, worker, and constitutional organizing strategies. Her journey from journalist to organizer reflects her deep commitment to challenging corporate control and uniting justice movements for lasting change. Welcome, Jennie. Let's dig in. Where should we start?
Hi. Well, let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's great to see you in person again, Yana, and I love your glasses. You're so always so beautiful.
Thank you.
And Malcolm, it's great to see you again.
Same
We
here.
don't get to talk as often, but I'm honored to be here and appreciate
Well,
all the work that you are doing, trying to
next
raise
time
up.
next time you're in Sherman Oaks, California, please drop in.
Okay, I will. You can count on it. Um, but as you said, I'm with Move to Amend. So we're an organization, a coalition of hundreds of thousands of people and hundreds of organizations that are working to amend the Constitution to make clear that a corporation is not a person and that its money is not a form of free speech that should be given without limits in our US elections. We have seen the devastating effects of money in our politics since the Citizens United decision came down. Move to Amend formed shortly before that decision came down because we saw the writing on the wall, right? We knew based on precedent that the Supreme Court was going to again determine that a corporation was a human being entitled to inalienable rights that were meant obviously for human beings and not corporations. Um, and like I said, that was built on precedent. So a lot of people believe that this problem started with Citizens United, but Citizens United was just a furtherance of this corporate takeover of our governance. And the first time that corporations hijacked the 14th Amendment hijacked the Constitution was the 14th Amendment, which, as you all know, was meant to free people from bondage and slavery, and this to change the tide on this horrible history of enslaving human beings. And essentially, the powers that be had decided that since they can no longer consider human beings property, they were going to consider their property human beings and all of the rights that that entails. And as we know, corporations' sole purpose, decided by the Supreme Court, is to make money. So this entity that's sole purpose or primary purpose is to make money also has garnered the 14th Amendment right to equal protection, Fifth Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, First Amendment rights to free speech. And that since it doesn't have a mouth, its money is a form of free speech. And again, now with Citizens United, it can be given without limits in our elections, which has given rise to super PACs, which is like common now, but 15 years ago, actually 16, this is 16th anniversary of Citizens United was January 21st of this year. So this devastating decision that came down, and we have seen election after election, more and more money being poured into our elections, foreign entities being able to influence our elections. This legalized bribery, if you will, has pretty much devastated,
Yeah.
Our policies in America.
Now, I have a question.
Sure.
Does this apply to all elections, state elections and federal elections, or do states have the right to put their own laws in?
Okay,
Or it's just
so
superseded by the
it's
Supreme Court?
superseded by the Supreme Court. The only thing that can override a Supreme Court decision is a constitutional amendment. right? The Dred Scott case said that no black man has that no white man has an obligation to follow to the blacks had no rights in America, right? So the only way that that could change is through Supreme Court decisions. A war was fought over it, and then three amendments came out of that: the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, right? And the 14th Amendment granted equal protection to all people, mainly and namely freed black slaves. But ironically, of the first 200 cases brought before the Supreme Court, 159 of them were business entities, not free black slaves. And since that time, of course, you know, I think 100 years ago, it was less than 1.01% of the cases brought before the Supreme Court were actually free black slaves. The corporations are the ones that have used and utilized equal protection more than any other or all other individuals combined.
So aside from putting another case in the Supreme Court, is there any way that states as a whole can vote to change that law?
Well, interestingly, there are some initiatives going on. Move to Amend also supports some state statutory reforms that can change things. So corporations are entities that are created, right? They have been given powers by their creation through state legislatures. So there's some initiatives that are on the table right now. Is colloquially called the Montana Plan, and that's going to the structure of a corporation itself and saying, hey, if you are a corporation operating in the state of Montana, and it's called Montana Plan because it's the first place it's been introduced, but it is being introduced all across the country now. And what they are trying to do is change the structure at the conception, if you will, of the corporation so that it makes clear that they cannot give in political elections. So, and to also have transparency, like if they give, because the Supreme Court said they could give, if they give, then we get to know who's giving. Like right now, super PACs and dark money, we don't even know who's paid to put people in many cases, right? Into power. And so we are seeing, a rise of authoritarianism all across the U.S. In our policies, in the corporate capture. I mean, just recently, the current regime, and again, it doesn't matter who's in power. This is the structure, right? It's some people like to say that that the system is rigged, and we like to say it's fixed. It's working just the way it's intended, right? Those that have more money are yielding way more influence in our elections. Decisions are made. I believe during the election, for example, Trump said to the oil executives at a really expensive lunch, if you give me $1 million, I will clear the way for regulations when I come into office. And he's done just that. And in fact, last week he announced an increase of oil subsidies. While we can't get health care for, everyday Americans, we're having a problem, getting housing, having affordable housing because corporations are gobbling up all of the housing and then charging exorbitant rents. Example after example I can give you of what we call corporate rule, which is what we consider that we're living under right now. And we're trying to change that. We have a vision for the future that is very optimistic. We're going to amend the Constitution to make clear that a corporation is not a person and that its money is not a form of free speech. Yeah. And this is the first step, we believe, in creating a genuine democracy in the U.S., probably for the first time.
Are corporate donations tax deductible for elections?
No. So that's a 501c4, and they are not tax deductible. A lot of PACs are C4s. Move to Amend's a C4. No, we have our educational arm, our Move to Amend education fund that funds our educational programming, but Move to Amend to be able to go and train our supporters to lobby their representatives, to ourselves go and lobby our representatives. That requires a C4 tax structure, and that is not tax deductible.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Now,
talk about, I know you have a lot of support. Who all are you working with? Some of the biggies. You mentioned No King's Day. What else going on with that?
So yeah, we are a partnering organization with the Nose King's Day events, both one part 2.0 and 3.0, which is coming up on March 28th. We're really excited about that. It's going to be the largest action in U.S. history, at least in my lifetime. And we've built every time. There's some research that indicates that if you get 3.5% of the population of sustained resistance or sustained coalition and movements, then it can and will create lasting change. So, a lot of times No Kings naming the issue and they're pushing it out. No Kings is operating probably in your community. And if not, please organize a rally, organize an event, organize a sit-in, organize, get together with like-minded folks in your community for that. We're also partners with a Move On organization. Veterans for Peace, for example, is a partnering organization that has made passing the We the People Amendment part of their strategic goals. Because as they put it, Mike Ferner, their president, president last year, their past president, as he put it, we've been going after the arsonists for far too long. I mean, we've been fighting those fires far too long. And what we need to do is go after the arsonists. And this amendment gets at the arsonists that have been setting
I
fires.
hear your dog agreeing with us.
I know
They
he's
usually
now.
do. Also, since we have limited time and there's so much to share, Jenny, one time we were talking and we were talking about what went on in Minnesota, and you said, yes, you have a big contingency there. You want to talk about that?
Well, Minnesota, we have a very strong state coalition there, and they are working to get We the People Amendment resolution introduced that will be introduced this year. And they're right in the middle of what is happening with the ICE crackdowns. It's affecting their neighbors, their families, their communities. So it's been pretty devastating, but it's also very inspiring to see, people, even though, like Renee Good getting shot in the face in broad daylight, witnesses all around. And then, of course, when authoritarian regimes kind of take power, one of the things they do is try to control their narrative. So we have all this propaganda coming out that somehow she was a terrorist when she's kind of a soccer mom, right? She's just
Yeah.
looking out for her community and trying to make sure that everybody's safe. Or Preddy, who was a VA nurse. Again, he spent his not just his off time, but his working time trying to heal his community and be a healer in his community. So we're seeing this devastation that's coming out of there. But because people are taking action, we actually got footage of it, right? We actually are seeing what happened, and we're able to push back on this narrative that somehow, protesting is a bad thing, or that recording the devastation and the heartbreak that's happening all over the country. But yeah, we have a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful state coalition there, and they are working in collaboration and in coalition with others working. And what's so exciting too, in my opinion, is they had one of the largest general strikes in Minneapolis. I think it was 3 Fridays ago.
Was it
After
I forget what like I forget what it was called, but it was like a closed down strike, where businesses were closed and everything.
Yeah, yeah, they shut down the well, nobody was showing up at the schools anyway. I've seen a couple of interviews from teachers. They're like, we are my classroom's at 20% right now because
Yeah.
people are afraid to come to school, because
Hmm.
they've been gassing schools, and
Well,
trying to
they
snatch
were
children up and use them as bait.
yeah, they're afraid of ICE also of them taking away
Absolutely.
parents or because they're picking up the kids. Now, getting back to the amendments, are you trying to get a constitutional amendment through?
Absolutely. So it's
Now,
currently in the House.
what does that take? Because doesn't that take either two-thirds of the states?
Yes, and Congress. So once Congress passes, it'll go to the states. So we have a multi-prong approach. We are working at the local, state, and federal level. Now, our federal campaign, which is our flagship campaign, is the We the People Amendment. Again, two main provisions that say a corporation is not a person, the first one, and money is not a form of free speech that can be given without limits in our elections. So that would end the erroneous and insane notion and doctrine that a corporation is a human being. So, in corporate constitutional rights, in the insane idea that its money is a form of free speech. And it is currently in the House as HJR 54. It was introduced by Pramila Jayapal, and it has 70 co sponsors, so 71, including our lead sponsor. But at the state and local level, we have passed over 700 city, county, municipalities, and state resolutions in support of the We the People Amendment, so that when it comes to the states, they're ready, right? They're educated on what corporate personhood is. They're educated on what devastating effects money in our politics are, and so, as I said, there's 700 resolutions, and then we're also working on campaigns like the Montana Plan. I'm working on that here in Florida. We would like to get that passed because this helps blunt the corporate power, as we move along, instead of continuing to grow their power without any roadblocks or any democracy being implemented wherever they're at. And another example of corporate constitutional rights, like say a company wants to come and a um, build in your community, and the community's like, oh well, this is going to devastate our air, our water, and our quality of life. We would rather you not build here. Um, they can sue the city government or the county government for the money it would have made had they not stopped them from building in that community. So that's another one of those corporate constitutional rights that they've hijacked. And
Now, is there is there a separate way that you can bring something before the Supreme Court again without going through this whole thing with states' rights? Make another individuals making another case against the ruling of uh, Citizens United that overturns
yeah,
that.
yeah, unfortunately, no. If it were that, so Citizens United was a test case, right? This was a nonprofit entity that had created a political hit piece against a candidate, and they wanted to air it during the election cycles. The McCain-Feingold bill and act had said, that's electioneering, nothing after like 30 days, and I'm not sure about the exact timing, but I'm gonna say 30 days before the election. That's the time to think about everything you have learned up to this point and
Yeah.
decide who your best candidate
Yeah.
is.
Anyway,
um,
Jenny, I know we can go for at least another 20 minutes, but we have like a minute left. I wanted number two things. Number one, I wanted you to talk about the flags and the sponsors that you have in back and give them a shout out. And number two, give a website where people can talk to you or donate money to the cause.
Absolutely. Movetoamend.org. We are full of information. Like you said, we could talk for probably another 2 hours about corporate constitutional rights, and the established doctrine. That's why another court case wouldn't do it. Um, but movetoamend.org/donate if you would like to donate. We would love that. Even more so, what we're trying to do is build a grassroots movement. So if you agree that a corporation is not a human being and shouldn't have corporate constitutional rights, and its money is not a form of free speech that can be given without limits in our election, please go to movetoamend.org/motion, MOTION, and sign the petition in support. This is how we show legislators when we go to get them on board, show that their constituents are in support of this.
Okay.
And
And
then
quickly,
the
could you
other
mention your
question,
sponsors that
this
right.
flag here is an updated U.S. flag, obviously. This was given to us to use without limits by Adbusters, and they are kind of like a spoof advertising. And what they do is they do more factual advertisement, and more grounded in reality, not in the idea of
Mhm.
propagandizing. So they wanted to show what the flag would look like if it was
Very good. But anyway,
truly
our buzzer
representative.
just rang and we're out of time. But we're going to have to get you back on maybe in another few weeks if you have the time, because
Absolutely.
there's so
Hey,
much and it's so important what you're doing. Because basically, what uh, that amendment that they have is totally changed the whole structure of how
it
elections are run.
absolutely has.
And think
Yeah.
about Elon Musk and his support of Trump.
Yeah. And one more thing, please go to the No Kings rally, nokings.org. Find an action happening near you. It's March 28th. We need to come together. We need to stand together in unity. We're in this together, right? We might not, somebody said this recently, we may have come on different boats, but we're all in the same boat
Yeah.
now, right? And so we need to make sure that we're looking out for each other, and empathy and compassion, I think, is key.
Very good. And
Something that a
thank
corporation doesn't have.
thank you again for joining us.
Well,
Thank you
Malcolm,
for
here
having me.
I'll do our ending, but I just want to say, Jenny, send me things, and we'll do our best to help get the word out. So anyway, here we go. We hope you have enjoyed our show. If you have any questions or comments, please send us a message at malcolmpresents@gmail.com. Remember, you can find us at malcolmpresents.com and on YouTube, and Celebrating Everyday People on Facebook and Buzzsprout. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Wonderful talking with you.